Welcome back, everyone. This is another installment of Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build. In these fireside chats, I sit down with the people building, backing, and running better workplaces. I'm your host, Curtis Forbes. My guest today is Rachel Aleknavicius. Rachel is a benefits consultant with a passion for helping organizations turn their employee benefits into a true competitive advantage. And with years of experience supporting large national organizations, public sector entities, and small to mid-sized businesses, she's known for simplifying complex benefits challenges and delivering strategies that save money while enhancing employee satisfaction. As a proud single mother by choice, Rachel brings a deep sense of empathy and advocacy to her work, drawing on her own experiences navigating healthcare and workplace complexities. She partners closely with HR and executive teams to create innovative, sustainable benefits strategies that drive both talent retention and organizational success. Welcome to Behind the Build. Thanks for joining me, Rachel.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
It is. So that was a mouthful. And I
Yes.
love that you are a self-proclaimed benefits strategy nerd. Me too.
You know, us nerds have to stick together.
I mean, especially in this space, in
Yes.
HR especially. But so I've been looking forward to this chat for a little while. Your company, Nava, is an AI-powered platform for employee benefits, and it's robust, it's unique, it's very cool. I know I'm not doing it justice. So before we do anything else, I want to set the stage for this conversation by letting the audience know all about Nava. Tell me, what is it?
Yeah, so Nava is a company that was started by our co-founders, and they came from a non-employee benefit broker space. So they grew up building companies. Their last one was in real estate, and they brought technology platforms into real estate. So Donald and Brandon, in working with brokers, as they built their companies, they're just like, there's got to be a better way to do this. Brokers had so much power in this healthcare field, and they just didn't think they were using it properly. There's just so much that a broker can do to help fix healthcare. And so they put their minds together and decided that they were going to build a brokerage firm, putting the employee experience first. They really wanted to help employees have a better experience with the healthcare system, better understand their benefits, and really help them with the overall process of using insurance. Because as we know, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And if anything horrible should happen, you're getting invoices and bills and EOBs, and you don't know what's coming at you. And it's so you need a dictionary for healthcare terms just to understand what's going on.
Seriously.
And so their vision, which they're bringing to fruition now, is to have AI empowered tools to help both HR and employees. For HR, it's better administer, ease the simplification on the user end for them, simplify their day-to-day. And for employees, it's really empowering employees with their benefits and how to use it, getting their questions asked in real time, in real terms that they understand.
I remember the first time that you had told me all this and sort of explained the journey of those co-founders. And sometimes I feel like it takes, an individual or a group of individuals coming from an entirely different place, a different sector, to see the problem through a different lens, to be able to offer a solution, um, that can, in theory, sort of disrupt, right, the old way of thinking. You're right. It's complicated. It's very complicated for the employee. And the administration is not super easy for, the HR teams, or the business owner, right? Depending on the size of the organization. And so, but yet all the tools, right, they always seem to be the same. They're generally started by people who are in this world. And so
And
it takes a little thinking outside the box from people who might come from a different space, looking at something from a different angle to be able to, I guess, sort of tear down those walls, right?
yeah, yeah, it really is. When I was approached by Nava, I was immediately drawn to the vision and talking to Brandon. It's just like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. This is exciting. I've been doing benefits consulting for 15 plus years, and it's been the same thing over and over. I mean, the industry's old. The consulting business has not changed in probably 50 plus years.
Right.
So to say like we're going to do this different and not have that bias of being in this business before, it's been fun. Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So I want to hear more about that mission. As a startup founder, I'm always kind of curious about the why. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how do they, or how do you kind of articulate? Is it mostly around just the sort of antiquated way that it's been done before, or is there something deeper? Is there a personal mission involved for some of them?
I think it's a combo of both. So I'll start with the big picture vision, as ginormous and ridiculous as that may sound, is to fix healthcare. So you will see Nava, as we call ourselves, wearing our swag that says hashtag fix healthcare or hashtag fix healthcare everywhere. So that's the broad, huge goal that we're after.
Mhm.
We're starting the focus is to start by helping employees with their benefits. So we're starting with employees who have group benefits. So we're starting at that group level, and fixing the healthcare for them by the innovative apps, the AI integration, our customer service support, all of that we bring to the table. I think the vision started because both Donald and Brandon had experiences of their own navigating the healthcare system. Donald shares his story where he was diagnosed with cancer and left his treatment with tens of thousands of dollars in debt for his therapy. Brandon grew up in the outskirts of Alaska, of all places,
Oh,
and
wow.
saw many of his friends or families going into debt because of medical care.
Wow.
And so they really saw and knew firsthand that this is an issue for a lot of Americans.
Yeah.
And they just felt this sense of responsibility to make it easier and help folks.
Yeah. I it's not uncommon, right, for businesses or startups, organizations really as a whole to evolve out of a need for something, right? Somebody's journey, right, caused them to see something or think of something or need something. I mean, in the Mustard Hub story is similar, right? We built, this out of a need to solve certain problems, right? And built this proprietary software that to solve these problems and these kind of businesses, and wound up right bringing it to the masses. And so the fact that they had those personal experiences that they wanted to solve, just I mean, it makes it personal, right? You want to then dump all of that passion and energy into solving that problem and knowing that you can do that for everybody else too, which is pretty powerful.
It is. It is. And, the deeper they get into it, the more they see the games that are played, for lack of a better word, with, renewals or, different strategies that we'll say that our
Mhm.
competitors use. And it gets very frustrating because they're playing this old game from years and years ago where we're trying to be more transparent and more real with our clients and getting to know them. We're really true partners with our clients.
Mhm.
And so I think as the mission continues, it becomes more and more of yes, we need to do this. It's more of an urgency,
Yeah.
from every year that we're continuing this mission.
So what kind of customers come to Nava? I'd like to know more about the kinds of organizations that you work with and maybe what challenges that they're looking to solve when they sign up.
Yeah. So a lot of customers are coming to us because, I mean, the easy ones are, we're not happy with our current broker. Our relationship just isn't there anymore. I just don't think that they're doing the right thing for us. There's a pain of some sort.
Mhm.
And so they're seeking out a change. Um, More and more, we're finding customers where we're highlighting some of the pains that they didn't even realize they had. You know, well, my broker said that this 25% renewal was the best that they could do. Well, no, that's probably not true. Would you mind if we look at it and see what we can do? And so we're bringing these innovative solutions where we're bringing renewal costs drastically down for clients. We're giving them more service with our team, our customer service team, and then we're bringing these tools on top of it to help make everybody's jobs and utilization easier. And it's across the board from small groups to large national accounts, and all industries that we're attracting because of this innovative and strategic thought process, and really bringing the customer first. It's not about our revenue. And yes, we're here in the business to make money, as everyone is, but we all are really deeply passionate about helping our customer.
This new approach, is it is it blue ocean, or do you see a lot of organizations trying to either pivot and sort of follow this lead, or other small startups doing similar things? I mean, what does that competitive landscape look like?
Yeah, it's interesting because the bigger brokerage firms who we compete with, they want to compete with us in the AI space. AI is such a big hot topic, right, in every industry right now. And so I know that we're the leading the pack there in our industry. We're leading the pack in our AI tools that we're bringing to market. We were first to market with this new platform, HQ. And so the bigger firms who are trying to get in this space, they're already so far behind because they don't have anything available for their clients. There are similar tools that can be white labeled, which usually come as a fee for groups if they want to use them. But to have a team internally like we do, where it's proprietary technology that we're building based on the needs that we've heard from our customers, that's really unique.
That is really unique. And I love hearing that. I mean, it's very, very cool. So I think a lot of organizations don't, you know, even really understand what benefits are, the role that they play when it comes to maybe attracting and retaining the right people.
Mhm.
But I'm curious to hear from you. How common do you think this is? And what are the consequences of seeing benefits just as another expense, or something that the organization just has to do?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, um, Maybe 10 years ago, it was, much more just an expense. Let's just bring it down. But now employees have an expectation that they're going to have benefits from their
100%.
employer. They expect medical, dental, vision, and life insurance at the very least. And so if you're not offering those on a competitive level, you're really losing out, because as employees are looking for jobs, they're really looking at those benefits closely. They've gotten wiser to know that, hey, I need this, and they're understanding a little bit more of their benefits, especially that mid-age population who have utilized benefits a little bit. And so, yeah, it is competitive. You need to be able to attract employees with your benefits. I see clients who are very generous with their benefit programs, and their employees stay put. They don't want to leave. They have a very easy job recruiting talent. And those who maybe don't put as much effort into their benefit package, it's struggle. There's lower morale. Employees will complain about using their benefits and the cost of them,
Mhm.
and so they really do tie together as far as be helping create that culture internally.
I would 100% agree with the statement that, it's the expectation has been set. I mean, they're really table stakes now. If you don't have that, or you're not putting the effort into delivering these in some competitive way, you're going to be missing out. It's just, you know, the way that it is now, and part of that sort of total reward strategy that a lot of businesses are adopting, and benefits are a huge part of that. So, um, I do think, though, a lot of organizations seem to not really understand what drives, employees. Big disconnect between leadership and the workforce in this area. Um, in my opinion, do you agree? I mean, how do we start bridging this gap? We've talked about, how to get people in the door, attracting them, retaining the right people with, these benefits that employees essentially expect to have. But what drives them when they're there?
Hmm. Yeah, I think you know having open communication with employees is really important. We help our clients with employee surveys, and
Hmm.
I'll put that out there very lightly because I'm a firm believer that if you're going to do a survey, you need to be prepared to take action, right? Employees are going to expect some change if they're going to be answering a survey. So if you're going to put a survey out there, make sure that you're ready to make necessary changes, even if it's enhancing a life insurance benefit or something, but employees will expect to see something from it. But yeah, I think keeping that communication channel open is really key, and having a good internal customer service, or some place for employees to go and get their questions answered easily, also really helps. We have that our HQ for employees, which is an app where employees can ask either AI or our advocate team their benefit questions. And we get so much positive feedback from employees on how it helped them understand their invoice, understand their benefits. And that alone really helps settle their minds internally within the organization. And so the organization as a whole is benefiting from it because the employee understands and is satisfied with their benefits.
I 100% agree with, what you're talking about in terms of those surveys. Um, I think that pulse and real time feedback methods and mechanisms, they risk fatigue, and this action gap, right? Constant pulse surveys can lead to a feedback fatigue. I see it all the time, right? If teams feel like they have to respond, weekly, but then don't see changes, trust erodes, right? I think execution is a big thing that matters, and without that system level accountability, feeding insights into manager development, resource allocation, whatever, frequent feedback becomes noise. Um, and I think that that's an important thing for a lot of organizations to remember. And so pointing that out, I think is so critically important to folks, that engagement is important. Pulse
Yes.
surveys and feedback is super important, but then without action, you can actually erode the trust of your employees. And you see that time and time again, that a lot of organizations don't necessarily, or may not feel that engagement is doing what it's supposed to be doing. At the same time, engagement for engagement's sake, right, without actually taking the action that's necessary, simply becomes performative data, right? And
Absolutely. Mhm.
that can be problematic and counterproductive.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely can. And then that just it breaks the trust from the employee perspective. And I've seen that happen where they're like, well, I'm not even going to participate because nothing's going to come from
Right. Or
this.
I'm just going to like click until I get to the end of the survey without really
Yeah,
putting too much thought into
getting
it.
angry about it too. Yeah, so and with our clients, we have, again, I mentioned the HQ app for employees, and within that, we consolidate all the questions that we get from the employees. It's
Oh,
done anonymously, but we consolidate those and we give employers the feed, the kind of
that's great.
the breakdown of the questions we're receiving. So then we can address those things in real time with some of our clients and say, okay, employees are not understanding this. This is a common question we're getting. Let's draft a custom communication or an education piece or something to help ease their mind. So that's something that we're actively involved with clients too, just to help bring that awareness to the employees.
I love this. So that's really interesting to me. Let's talk then about some of the communication, about some of the culture, about building some of these shared values. I mean, these are all really important things for retaining, right? For engaging employees. You're getting a tremendous amount of data from this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this is it's not just important for retaining folks. Also even getting people, the top talent in the door. I think a lot of organizations are missing the mark here. Why do you think? I mean, how can organization and their HR teams begin to fix all of that stuff?
A lot of it is because we don't have the data, right? Some organizations, if they're not getting data from their carriers, if they're, under that credibility mark that the carriers say, which is often about 300 employees enrolled on a plan, they're not getting any data. So they don't have any insights from, if they're fully insured, no insights as from what their utilization looks like.
Mm.
They're really relying on what they hear on the streets or internally from employees. And oftentimes that's just going to be complaints. You never hear anything good, right?
No, yeah, that's true.
You're just hearing the complaints. And, okay, is that credible? Maybe, but is it affecting everybody or just one person? So I think the lack of information that HR is able to get sometimes really makes it difficult. And then I also think that, and this is no fault of HR, but a lot of my counterparts in are it's just an old industry, right? People are not wanting to be innovative unless they absolutely have to. Nobody wants to
Mm.
work harder unless they have to. So HR, unfortunately, I don't think is often brought a lot of these newer ideas or solutions and educated on these options that would allow them to either get more information or cut costs and or improve benefits for employees. All these different things. Although the industry has stayed the same, there are a lot of new options that have been created in the past 3-5 years that really can help the employee experience, the cost, all of it. And unfortunately, I don't think that's being brought to HR or the executive team often enough.
There's just the world of HR. I think that historically, right, there's been just there hasn't been a ton of innovation. And oftentimes the innovation can be stonewalled, I guess. Especially in a space like that. So it's pretty remarkable time how transformative AI is and how it's starting to affect this world. It's essentially forcing the HR space to change and pretty rapidly. Are there other things that you'd like to see changed in the world of employee benefits or even human resources in general? I mean, what would you want to be different? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on
Oh, what would I want to be different?
that. Where do we even start?
Yeah, I would love for everybody to have more transparency. I get HIPAA. We can't see what everyone's sicknesses or ailments are. Um, but I used to be an underwriter, and that data is really important for groups to understand. They can make better choices with it. They can implement supplemental benefits that could help bring down their costs, or they could increase benefits sometimes. So I think the lack of data that HR has to go with often to make decisions is really difficult. It puts them in a, gives them a, in a hard, puts them in a hard place. So I would love if we could be a little bit more transparent from the carrier side, just giving them something to make an informed decision. And then, and also the customer service, we've all talked about AI and how great it can be, but also those customer service lines where you have to click press the numbers and
Oh
take
yeah.
forever to get to an operator.
Yep.
I wish the carriers would get away with those. People are calling them often in critical times. They can't get their prescription drug. They're
Yeah.
at the doctor's office and they have to go through this menu. They're not getting their question answered, and it's just so incredibly frustrating. And so I just think there's a lot of things that we can do to simplify, or I wish that we could do to simplify the overall experience from both HR and the employee. Um,
Are some of
it's
those things that you just mentioned, are some of those things what Nava solves?
We do. So, like I said, the employee not being able to get their prescription at the pharmacy, that's something that they could go into the app and ask our team or ask AI, saying, "Hey, the pharmacist says I owe $200 for this drug. What's my true copay?" The app will tell them exactly what they should expect to pay for that drug.
That's
So,
pretty
so
powerful.
Yeah, yeah. So we are giving them some of those resources in their hands. And then as far as HR and the data or lack thereof from some of the carriers, we're really digging in and trying to give as much information as we can, even if it's not written, but breaking down the renewal and really finding solutions that will provide HR in the future with more information, whether it's, looking at captives and self-funding. Those captives are allowing a lot more groups to explore self-funding. There's level funding. There's different plans that offer a preferred network that you can go into for lower costs. So there's a lot of different innovative ideas out there to allow HR to really get more information from how their plan is being utilized, and then allow them from there to make more informed decisions to help control costs overall.
Very cool. I want to dig into AI a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I know that to some degree, I think it's a divisive topic for some people. For
Yeah.
others, it's been a huge game changer. Talk to me a little bit on your thoughts on AI's overall application to the world of HR benefits in some generalities. I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but by this I mean like what do you think's been the most beneficial, for example? I mean, is it totally and it's totally okay if you say Nava, or what can be done better? How do you see its use, in the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years?
I think we're just really at the cusp of it. And I am no tech geek at all. So the vision that our internal team has, it blows my mind sometimes because I'm like, whoa, I never even thought about asking something like that. But I think there's a fear in AI taking over jobs.
Yeah.
And, well, if AI is going to be there to answer employees' questions, what do I do? Well, within HR, you're doing 15 things at the same time. This AI tool is meant to really just help streamline, help make your life easier. It's not
Yeah.
meant to take over anyone's job. It's just really there to help be an assistant for you. And so, and then as we grow, I think the AI is only going to get smarter. We're version 1 right now, where we're able to ask it and help with a lot of questions and put together emails and pull documents and that type of stuff. But I think in the future we'll be able to see it really maybe dig in a little bit more with predicting predictability. Perhaps that would be awesome. Hey,
Yeah.
we're seeing some of these claims drawn up, and so the prediction models would come a little bit better. But it's hard. HR has to be so secure, and HIPAA rules, and So you really have to have your compliance in order, and the HIPAA certification set in order to have HR be even wanting to talk about AI,
Yeah.
because it's any information gets loose, and that's no good for anybody.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. I am kind of curious to touch a little bit on how it's impacting workers because you talked about how there are a lot of people who feel like AI is coming for their job.
Hmm.
And maybe they don't understand it well enough, or maybe they understand it too well. I guess it all really depends on who it is we're talking about.
Hmm.
Uh, I probably tend to lean towards kind of your perspective on it that, it's a tool for us, it's probably not going to replace as much as we thought it was going to replace, but rather give us the ability to, 2, 3, 4x our output. Um, from your perspective, what you've seen with your customers, are the employees, are these workers generally taking to AI? Do you see there being a lot of adoption? Do you still see it mostly as, those who've adopted AI to be just a small insular network and most people really haven't explored it or maybe have used Chat GPT once or twice in their lives, or do you see a lot of them really recognizing how it can benefit them or could be beneficial?
Yeah, we just rolled out this month our HQ for HR. So HR is just now getting on it, and the feedback has been completely positive, and
Good.
they're
Okay.
awestruck by it. So I think even some who are maybe a little skeptical are like, this is amazing. I can just ask it any question. And so it's not necessarily even taken away from us. Our clients come to us for a lot of questions and maybe have to wait an hour or whatever, go back and forth while we research things. And now they can just ask AI and they have it right there. If they have an employee in their
Mhm.
office, they don't have to wait for me to pick up the phone or
Right.
answer an email. They just ask AI and they get the question immediately. So it really helps just everyone with customer service all the way around. And, for HR, like I said, they're doing 100 different things during the day. So to have to pivot from one thing to another, this assistant really just helps with that. And so the feedback has been how much easier it's making their day to day, which is what was the ultimate goal.
Exactly. I was just going to add that. That's true.
Mhm.
And so as more and more AI is applied to all the aspects, I guess, of this employee experience, how we work, is there something that leaders need to be doing in order to sort of incorporate AI in the best way? Are employees sort of left to their own device to figure out how they want to incorporate? I mean, what's ideal as they infuse it into the organizations, when it comes to operations and processes and workflows?
Yeah, I think, you have to have, I think in general, you probably have to have some rules in your employee handbook or something about AI. Our platform is very secure. It's limited to that particular client's benefit program. It's locked down, so it's not on the open internet. It's within, a lockdown system, so it's never going to be used in Chat GPT or anything. Their information's secure. So I think, I've talked to other clients who are like, well, we can't use Chat GPT because we're it's unsecured, right? And so I think making rules around it, and bringing it, if you're going to bring it in house, you probably want it to be a little bit more secure, rather, so people can use it. And I think it's great. I think, for me, it's a mind break. Okay, if
Hmm.
I'm tired and need to draft emails or whatever, I can put it in Chat GPT and like tighten this up for me because I can't think of what I
Yeah.
want to say very well. And it's amazing. So I just think for organizations, they really probably need to sit down and figure out the rules around it, and and step into it, and
Yeah.
just kind of lean into it and start using it, because I don't see it going anywhere. And used properly, it really is an amazing tool to help
It's
streamline.
an amazing tool. It can do fireside chats. I'm not even here right now. I'm having coffee
Can.
over
It
there.
can. Yes, yes. I love that. We talked about that for our open enrollment meetings. We can like put this into a podcast for employees to listen to on their benefits. It's awesome.
So do you see? other applications for AI when it comes to the world of work? I mean, what's next, right? I mean, we've talked specifically about how it works with Nava, but what about the broader picture for HR in general? What's coming after this, or should anything come after it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's room for it if they want it. I see it. It could be used probably for recruitment and maybe initial interview scopes.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. That's tricky because
Hard to say.
HR is such a personal space.
Yeah.
HR folks are typically they're people, right? They're
People,
they're they're
that's exactly. In fact, we say that at Mustard Hub sometimes. We're people.
Yeah, and so I don't really see it taking over too much of HR. I really see it being, like I said, an option to allow for efficiencies.
Um, you talked before a little bit about data, right? And about how some of it can be helpful, or how some of it, having some more of it, could be more helpful. As all this stuff is going on, do you feel like business, and I'm talking generally speaking and not necessarily only about healthcare, um, but do you feel like the business leaders are paying attention to the right kinds of data when it comes to people's signals? I mean, they have access to more information now than ever, and it comes from their healthcare and benefits, employee engagement, productivity tools,
Mhm.
messaging. It's coming from everywhere, right? They have access to more than they ever have before. But what do you feel they should be monitoring when it comes to engagement or workplace happiness and
Mhm.
culture?
Yeah, and in that regard, all these different systems that they're pulling from and looking at, that's it can be overwhelming, right? They
Can
they don't
be.
know where to look at.
How do you separate the signal from the noise?
Right, right. So yeah, that's tough, and perhaps that's a place where you can use AI to integrate it all and summarize it for you a little bit better. But I think the productivity and the is it the psychological health of employees is
The
pretty
well-being, for sure.
their well-being. Yeah, for the longest time we've been focused on people's physical health, which we still are and still ought to be, but ever since COVID, that mental strain, and I think it's only going to get worse because our day-to-day is only getting faster, and so it's hard to adapt, and the world and our lives are constantly changing. So it gets to be exhausting as an employee. So I think, really kind of focusing on that and normalizing it and acknowledging it with employees could be a big key.
You just said something that I feel like I want to call out in a meme, that as as time is rolling on, our days are just getting faster. And just thinking about it in those, I mean, you put it so simply, but like it's true. I mean, all of us, the more tools we have at our disposal, the more things that we can do, right? Our output is growing exponentially. The more things we can do means the more things we are doing, right? And it can feel overwhelming, right? And I think, like you're saying, just stopping to acknowledge those kind of things, right? So that we all know that we all know,
Yes.
is is a really good step that maybe not every business leader is making.
Yeah.
So how can they get better at it? What are your recommendations here? I'm sure technology even can play a role. It's funny because technology is partially what's creating this, but it doesn't play a role in also solving it.
No, it does. I mean, you can get ideas, put in chat GPT, how do I help my employees with their day-to-day angst or whatever. I bet, you can probably get that. But I think acknowledging it and just humanizing it a little bit, like hey, let's all take a moment to realize that this is not easy. We're
Yeah.
all feeling the same thing. We're all feeling the same pressures. And so folks don't feel alone. I think a lot of people think sometimes it's only them. You know, we work in a remote environment at Nava, and so the fact that we can talk with each other and stuff and share these, we do often over Slack or whatever, and just vent to each other. But with hybrid and remote work, I think it's even more important to really make sure there's a culture of openness and communication, to bring that to light, and it has to come from upper management for folks to realize that yes, we understand it's not easy. This is hard, because you know life is busy. You
Yeah.
have families or pets or homes to take care of. There's always something there to do.
100%. And I think sustainable impact, is going to come from these ongoing systems, right? Not just static, one-off pulse surveys like we talked about before. Circumventing that stale feedback issue, is super important, and it's going to take leaders, right, who kind of see this, I think, and have the foresight to see it and understand it, and are willing to take a beat,
Yep.
let
Yep.
everybody know that we're all dealing with it, and we get it.
Yeah.
So to sort of wrap up the conversation, I mean, I want to know, what else. Tell me what leaders need to get better at when it comes to benefits, or in general, if, when it comes to their people, if you were to even separate them, because they could be two different things.
hmm Um, I think, for what I'm seeing now too, I think a big part of it could be asking and pushing harder on the brokers, on us. Expect more from us, right? I want my clients to push me and really challenge me with the status quo. And I
That's
expect
amazing.
myself to do that too.
I
So
love that.
I think oftentimes, especially because HR, benefits is not their whole world. It's a side thing. They do once a year, really focus on it, and that's it. Although it's usually the second highest cost item within an organization, right behind payroll. So, to focus on it just a little bit. But yeah, expect more from your broker, expect more than status quo, ask the hard questions, push back, and, don't be afraid to explore options. If you're not getting results year over year, explore your options. I get it that your broker could be golf buddies with the CFO, but is that worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to your bottom line?
Right.
So I think just keeping an open mind. We're leading the charge to make our space more competitive and
Yeah.
change. And so I think I'm proud of that for all of us here at Nava, that we're really out there challenging that status quo and helping leaders understand the importance of asking questions and pushing back a bit more.
I love that was, I love that answer. The answer of help make us and this whole industry basically better, by challenging us, and leaders oftentimes get, you know, they get advice or recommendations, they get feedback or data or whatever it happens to be, from their brokers or from, whatever companies they use, and they don't often challenge it. This is what I get, and I accept that as status quo, but it doesn't have to be. Um, so I think that that's really awesome. So I appreciate you saying that, and it sounds like Nava's kind of doing all the right things to, you know, to help everybody that it can. So Thank you. That's some pretty good advice for everybody. Hopefully they'll take you up on it.
That'd be great. I'd love to. Even if it's just to give my 2 cents, I'm happy to do that anytime. Mm-hmm.
Well, this was really insightful, Rachel. I'm grateful for all the time. I'm really appreciative, that you were willing to join us today.
Well, thank you. No, this was fun. I enjoyed the conversation as well. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank everybody for joining us. This is Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build. Be sure to like and share this episode. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss the next installment. I'd also like to recommend visiting us at mustardhub.com. There you can learn more about Mustard Hub. You can get started for free and discover how we help companies become destinations for workplace happiness and turn culture into a competitive edge. Till next time.